Hi everyone, welcome to National Vegan Week. I'm Liz Radicevic, an Accredited Practising Dietitian and Sports Dietitian, and today I'll be talking to you about the important nutrients to be mindful of whilst following a vegan diet. Now, the vegan diet has become increasingly popular over the last few years and has been around for a while now, but it's becoming a lot more popular. A lot more people are wanting to adopt this style of eating for a number of different reasons. And also the stores, different types of health food stores and supermarkets are becoming more aware of this type of eating and have produced a lot of different products these days that are suiting vegan diets and different alternatives that people can use in place of things like dairy or meats, which is a great marketing strategy and a great way to, help people feel like they're not missing out on anything. So the first important nutrient to be mindful of is protein. Protein is really important because it helps us keep full throughout our meals, and we usually recommend consuming a serve of protein at least at each of your 3 meals across the day. And this is something we see very common in vegan eating, is that people do sort of skimp on the protein, but it's a really important nutrient to be mindful of and to be consuming to make sure that we are feeling satisfied and not feeling hungry, because when we're not satisfied, of course, we tend to eat and snack more across the day, which can sort of be, unproductive in a way. Different types of protein sources coming for a vegan diet include things like your legumes, so beans, lentils, and chickpeas. Also things coming from soy products, so things like your tofu, your tempeh. Also things like your soy yogurts and milks are also another good vegan protein. And making sure they're fortified with calcium is another important factor, especially with the plant-based milks such as soy milk. The other ones include textured vegetable protein, nuts and seeds, quinoa, which is a really good whole grain out on the market these days, which is definitely a double bonus, being a whole grain, a carb, and a protein. And also your amaranth grain and whole grains as well. So whole grains in general seem to be a very good, nutrient, especially following a vegan diet, but also do have a lot of research to help with a healthy bowel and to keep things nice and regular, of course, and to help with the gut diversity, to keep things very diverse and your gut thriving, which is also another important aspect from gut health. The other nutrient that's really important is iron. Iron's really important to help transport the red blood cells around the body and oxygen around the body. And as we may know, when we're deficient, we don't feel like we're running on all fours, which can make us feel sluggish, tired, lack of concentration, that type of thing. So mostly women, although some men, but mostly women do struggle from low iron stores, whether that's deficiencies or anemia, because of our menstrual cycle. So we need to be mindful of being on top of the iron, especially when we are menstruating, to make sure that we're not falling behind on this important nutrient. And it is important to supplement when necessary, of course, but also being mindful of those foods that are high in iron so that we can start to consume them food first approach. And always what I do recommend is consuming foods as a first approach is always recommended, because the body does prefer food over supplements. However, supplements are still important though to keep you at that mark if you do need to be, at a particular level if you're low, or if you're consuming a vegan diet and might be sort of susceptible to being low with those particular nutrients. So iron-rich foods again include legumes, so those are the beans, the lentils, and the chickpeas. Again, the tofu and the tempeh and the nuts, seeds, and whole grains. But also iron-fortified foods, so things like your breads and cereals, you can get fortified these days, which is an added benefit for iron. Also quinoa and amaranth grain, again, they're high in iron, but also green leafy veggies and fruits, dried fruits especially, are high in iron. And it's a really good tip just to be mindful of is that, like iron in general and making the most of iron, it's important to be mindful to keep your vitamin C rich foods close to consumption of things like your green leafy veggies or your dried fruits to enhance the absorption of iron there. So vitamin C rich foods include Not so much always just your citrus sort of products, so things like your oranges, but also kiwi fruits, tomatoes, broccoli, strawberries and juices. They're also good to be consumed at meals when you're consuming those green leafy veggies or the dried fruits. Also, another thing to be mindful of if we are susceptible to low iron is the iron blockers. So caffeine in general, or tea and coffee, are known to block the absorption of iron. So we do recommend consuming these particular drinks either 30 minutes prior to or after your meal, not during your meal, because they can hinder the absorption of iron there. So that's another important tip to be mindful of. Calcium is the next important nutrient, important for our bones and our teeth and our growth. So really important to not be sort of skimping on this category as well. Again, we've got some lovely calcium fortified foods such as your plant-based soy, your nut sort of milks there do have calcium fortified. Soy milks is a good one. Almond milk is getting better with calcium fortified. So just making sure that it's around about 120 milligrams per 100 grams of calcium. So similar to your cow's milk. Also, different other things include sesame seeds, tahini, amaranth grain again, Asian greens, collard greens, also the soy tofu and broccoli are also another good source of calcium. And making sure that we've got adequate vitamin D will also inhibit your calcium absorption as well. The other one to be mindful of as well is salt. So limiting your salt intake, because calcium absorption can be limited if we've got high intake of salt in the diet as well. The other one, as we mentioned before, was vitamin D. So vitamin D can be hard to come across in the diet alone. As we may know, sun exposure is really important for vitamin D absorption, but in the colder months we might not be able to get out in the sun too much with all of the rain and the that sort of winter weather. So what we tend to recommend is either supplementing across the year if you need to, and that could be an option for you. But also vitamin D fortified mushrooms are also a really important food that you can get a lot of your vitamin D levels from, which is good as well. This can be store purchased, but you can also do it yourself, which is a fun project at home. So you could pop your mushrooms in the sun for up to 15 minutes, which can really, really increase that vitamin D consumption. And it's a really, really simple way to increase your vitamin D by quite a lot. Of course, vitamin D is also fortified in foods as well, some margarine and some soy products. So make sure you check them out to see as well. And even, different other types of products can be on the market there as well. But just make sure you check those for sure. Vitamin B12 is another important nutrient for cell division, formation of DNA, and maintaining the nervous system. So again, fortified foods is another good one from soy milks, the meat analogues, so things like your corn meats, veggie burgers, or even Marmite do contain high levels of B12. Again, a vitamin B12 supplement may be required if you find that you're either not preferring those particular products or that you're low in general. It's really important to make sure you're supplementing there. Just having a good routine of these different nutrients can be a good supplemental sort of strategy, whether you're needing a multivitamin or specific tailored, so B12 or vitamin D supplements is based on your blood levels. So make sure you get blood tests regularly to make sure that you're knowing whether you need to just sort of keep the levels, at bay or keep them within a good range, or whether you need to target specific nutrients. A multivitamin may not be enough to meet that nutrient need. Omega-3 is another important one, which we may usually get from things like fish. So of course, vegan diets do not include fish in their particular regime. So flaxseed oil, chia seed oil, hemp seeds, walnuts, they're a really good option. Seaweed, interestingly enough, tofu, chia seeds, linseed, so a lot of those seeds again, or even those fortified soy milks is another good option of omega-3. So as you can see, a lot of these types of nutrients do overlap with the different types of foods, which is probably a good added win there, so that you're not having to get a heap of different products for each nutrient group. Of course, consuming foods rich in higher omega-3 fatty acids will increase your omega-3 consumption, which is the foods that I've mentioned previously, or even supplementing, making sure it's a vegan-friendly supplement to make sure that you're consuming enough omega-3 there as well. Zinc is another important nutrient, which is really important for our immune system and to keep us functioning on all fours. So there's different types of supplements that you can purchase for zinc, but also things from foods such as legumes, grains, nuts, seeds, things that we've mentioned before in the other food groups, and even soy foods, so tempeh, tofu, soy milk, soy yogurt, that type of thing as well. So soy seems to be a very popular thing for vegan eaters in terms of covering all of those food groups and the nutrient levels, which is good. Iodine is another one, and that's one of the other important nutrients that we need to be mindful of. Iodine is similar to vitamin D in the sense that we can't sort of find a heap of foods with iodine in there, but one of the easy swaps we can do in the household is to purchase an iodized salt. So just one that's got iodine added into it, which can be an easy swap, and just adding that into your meals, or even a product called nori, which is also high in iodine. So either or would be preferred there. And, you know, we can add these in different types of foods, different types of meals. So there's a variety of different things that we can consume to make sure we are consuming adequate nutrients, making sure we are consuming the 3 main meals, or based on, you know, your own preference. It doesn't have to be 3 main meals, but whatever works for you. Of course, if you do need help seeing a dietitian, we can definitely help you with ways of getting the nutrients in, but also making sure that you're meeting all of the different categories as well. So it's a really important aspect to be mindful of all of these different nutrients, but also be aware, of course, that supplementing may be required as well on top of, but not instead of. So even if we are consuming a supplement such as, you know, vitamin D or B12 or a multivitamin, it won't excuse us from consuming things high in the other nutrients, but they'll work well when they're consumed, you know, when we're consuming foods high in the nutrients, and also with the nutrients coming from supplements as well. So hopefully that's helped you, and enjoy the show. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoy the show, and to find more about me or to follow me on socials, please find below.